There are Batman games that almost everybody remembers. The Batman Arkham games changed superhero games forever. Lego Batman became a childhood classic. Batman Begins gave us a darker and more realistic Gotham City. But before all of those games, there was another Batman game, a game that allowed you to play as Batman, Robin, Nightwing, and Batgirl. A game where you could sit beside a family member or friend and protect Gotham City together. A game that included a completely new Batman villain, and somehow almost nobody talks about it anymore. That game is Batman Rise of Sin Tzu. Batman Rise of Sin Tzu is not a perfect game. It has problems, the combat can become repetitive, some missions can feel unfair, and there are moments where the game throws a ridiculous number of enemies at you. But even with those problems, I still love this game. For me, this is more than an old Batman game. It reminds me of playing games with family and friends. It reminds me of a time when we did not care about frame rates, perfect graphics, updates, or expensive gaming setups. You could simply turn on the console, choose your character, and start playing. That was enough. So today, I want to look back at Batman Rise of Sin Tzu. I want to talk about its history. I want to explain why some people dislike it. I want to explain why other people still love it. And importantly, I want to answer one question. Is Batman Rise of Sin Tzu truly underrated? Let's find out. Batman Rise of Sin Tzu was released in 2003. The main version was released for the PlayStation 2, Xbox, and Nintendo GameCube. The game was developed by Ubisoft Montreal and came after another Batman game called Batman Vengeance. Batman Vengeance was more focused on exploration, platforming, puzzles, gadgets, and story. Rise of Sin Tzu went in a different direction. Instead of creating another adventure game, Ubisoft focused heavily on action. This game is a beat 'em up game. You move through different areas, fight groups of enemies, complete objectives, defeat bosses, and slowly unlock more attacks and gadgets. It is simple, but that simplicity is also part of its charm. Each character has a different fighting style. Batman feels powerful and heavy. Robin is quicker and more playful. Batgirl is fast and athletic. And Nightwing uses his moves with a lot of speed. Having 4 playable heroes was a huge part of the game's appeal. This was before the Arkham series allowed us to freely play as different members of the Bat family. Rise of Sin Tzu gave people an entire Batman team. And even better, you did not always have to play alone. This is probably the most important reason why the game feels so nostalgic to me. Batman Rise of Sin Tzu had a local 2-player co-op. One person could choose Batman, the other person could choose Robin, Nightwing, or Batgirl, and together you would fight through Gotham City. Today, online multiplayer is everywhere. You can play with somebody who lives on the other side of the world. That is amazing, but the local co-op had a different feeling. Both people were in the same room, you were looking at the same screen, you were laughing at the same moments, you were arguing over who should pick Batman or one of the different characters.
He wasn't gonna shoot you until you shoot him!
And when one person was getting attacked by enemies, the other person had to run over and help. Sometimes playing with another person made the game easier. Other times it created complete chaos. You might accidentally walk in opposite directions. One person might try to continue while the other person is still fighting somebody in the corner. You might both try to grab the same enemy, or one person might choose the character that the other person wanted. But those small moments became memories. When I think about this game, I do not only remember the missions, I remember the feeling of playing it with somebody else. I remember sitting down and sharing the experience, and I think many people have similar memories with older games. Sometimes the game itself is only one part of nostalgia. The bigger part is remembering who was beside you when you played it. That is something a review score cannot measure. A person can judge the graphics, they can judge the combat, they can judge the level design, but they cannot judge the personal memories you created while playing. That is why one person can look at Rise of Sin Tzu and see an average action game, while another person looks at it and sees their childhood. Rise of Sin Tzu also tried something very interesting with its villains. Instead of only using an older Batman villain, the game introduced someone new. His name was Sin Tzu. Sin Tzu was created for the game with a design by famous comic book artist Jim Lee. At the time, this was promoted as a major part of the game. A video game was introducing a new villain into Batman's world. That gave the game a special place in Batman's history. Sin Tzu is not simply another criminal trying to steal money. He sees himself as a master of war and strategy. He studies his enemies, he attacks their weaknesses, and he wants to prove that he can break Batman. The story takes place during the anniversary of the murder of Bruce Wayne's parents. That immediately makes the situation more personal for Batman, not gonna lie. Sin Tzu understands that Batman is not only a fighter. Batman is a person carrying years of pain. So instead of attacking him in only one way, Sin Tzu creates a large plan across Gotham. He frees several dangerous villains, Scarecrow becomes involved, Clayface becomes involved, and even Bane Bane becomes involved. Each villain creates a different kind of threat. Scarecrow attacks people through fear, Clayface brings confusion and destruction, Bane brings physical power, and behind everything is Sin Tzu, watching Batman and testing him. I like the main idea. Sin Tzu does not only want to defeat Batman in a fight, he wants to understand him. He wants Batman to feel tired, angry, depressed, and defeated. The problem is that the game does not always give Sin Tzu enough time to become a truly unforgettable villain. He has an interesting design, he has an interesting voice, and his plan fits Batman's world. But the game spends too much time fighting regular enemies that Sin Tzu can sometimes feel far away from the action. We hear him, we see him during story moments, but I wish the game had explored him more deeply. What made him become this way? Why was Batman so important to him? What did he truly want to prove? There was a room for a much deeper competition, and that may be one reason Sin Tzu never became as popular as Ubisoft probably hoped. He was introduced as a major new Batman villain, but after this game, he mostly disappeared. And honestly, I think that is unfortunate, because with the right story, Sin Tzu could return. He could be improved, he could become more dangerous, and his history with Batman could finally be explored. Now we have to talk about the main part of Rise of Sin Tzu. The fighting, the combat is easy to understand. You have basic attacks, you have stronger attacks, you can jump, you can grab enemies, you can throw enemies, you can have special moves, and as you continue playing, you can unlock more abilities. At first, the combat feels exciting. Batman and the other characters have cool animations. You can send enemies flying. You could also slam enemies into the ground. You can attack several people at once, and when you play in co-op, the screen can become filled with complete madness. The game also has a combo system. The better you fight, the more your combo grows. This encourages you to keep attacking without getting hit. It gives the combat a fast arcade feeling, and when everything works correctly, it is so satisfying. You feel like you and your partner are cleaning up the streets of Gotham. But this is also where the biggest criticism begins. The game becomes repetitive. You enter an area, enemies appear, you defeat them, more enemies appear, you defeat them, then even more enemies appear. Sometimes it feels like Gotham City has an unlimited supply of criminals waiting behind every door. You might defeat 20 people and think the fight is over. Then the game sends another group, and then another. At some point, Batman should probably stop fighting and ask where all these people are coming from. This is why some people don't really enjoy the game. If you do not like beat 'em up games, Rise of Sin Tzu may become pretty boring quickly. The main gameplay does not change very much. The enemies become stronger, new enemies types appear, the location change, but you are still fighting large groups for most of the game. The timer can also become frustrating. Certain missions require you to complete an objective before time runs out. That creates pressure, but it can also feel unfair. You might be trying to save somebody or reach an objective, but the game forces you to defeat every enemy first. You can clearly see where you need to go. You know someone is in danger, but the game is basically saying, no, you must defeat these 17 criminals before you are allowed to help. That can be annoying. In higher difficulties, it can become brutal. Enemies can surround you, some attacks can interrupt your moves, and losing near the end of a long section can make you want to turn the whole entire console off. The game needed more variety. It could have used more detective sections, more stealth, more puzzles, more moments involving Batman's gadgets, and maybe a few quieter sections between the major fights. Batman Vengeance had more adventure elements. Rise of Sin Tzu removed many of those elements to focus on only combat. Some people loved that choice. Other people felt like the game had lost some of what made Batman Vengeance special. Both opinions are fair. Even though the combat is repetitive, I still have fun playing Rise of Sin Tzu, and I think the reason is simple. The game understands the fun of being part of the Bat family. Batman does not feel alone in this game. Robin, Nightwing, and even Batgirl are not only background characters. They are playable heroes. They are involved in protecting Gotham, and each one gives you a reason to replay missions. Sometimes I want to play as Batman because he feels powerful. Sometimes I choose Nightwing because his fighting style looks pretty cool. Sometimes I want the speed of Robin or Batgirl. That variety helps the game. The animated art style also gives the game a strong identity. The characters look like they belong in the animated Batman world. The darker colors, the character designs, and the voices all create that classic feeling. The voice acting is one of the strongest parts of the experience. Kevin Conroy, rest in peace, returned as Batman. When you hear his voice, the game immediately feels more authentic. It does not sound like somebody trying to copy Batman. It sounds like Batman, or should I say more like Batman. The game may be old, but that voice still carries the weight. The atmosphere is also better than people sometimes remember. Gotham is dark. The streets feel dangerous. The locations have that old animated series look. And the opening with Batman remembering his parents gives the game an emotional beginning. This game was not trying to be realistic. It was trying to make you feel like you were controlling an animated Batman episode. And I think it succeeds at that. Not perfectly, but enough to make the game memorable. Before we continue, if you are enjoying this video and you made it this far, then hit the subscribe button so you never miss a video from my channel. I make videos about Batman, the Arkham series, mods, challenges, and other superhero games. Subscribing really helps the channel, and it lets me know that you want to see more videos like this one. Now let's get back into the video. When people criticize Rise of Sin Tzu, they normally mention the same problems. The combat is repetitive, the levels can feel too long, the missions reuse similar ideas, the timer creates unnecessary stress, and the story does not explore Sin Tzu enough. Those are real problems. It is also important to remember when the game was released. In 2003, people already had many action games to choose from. Some games had deeper combat, some had better exploration, and some offered much more variety. Rise of Sin Tzu was not reviewed as a terrible game, but it genuinely received mixed or average reactions. It was not bad enough to become famous for being terrible, but it was not successful enough to become a major classic. It ended up in the middle, and games in the middle are often forgotten. People remember masterpieces, people also remember complete disasters. But a decent game with several flaws, that game can disappear very quickly. Rise of Sin Tzu was also followed by a huge change in Batman games. Batman Begins arrived later, then Lego Batman became popular, and eventually Batman Arkham Asylum completely changed what people expected from a Batman game. Once the Arkham combat system existed, older Batman games began to feel much more basic. In the Arkham games, Batman can counterattacks, move between enemies, use gadgets during combat, disappear into the shadows, and frighten criminals. Rise of Sin Tzu cannot compete with that level of freedom, but I also do not think it should be judged only against Arkham. Rise of Sin Tzu belongs to a different kind of game. It is closer to an arcade game. Its goal is not to create the ultimate Batman simulator. Its goal is to let you choose a hero, fight criminals, unlock moves, defeat bosses, and have fun with another person. When you judge the game based on what it was trying to do, it becomes easier to appreciate. The people who love Rise of Sin Tzu usually remember a few important things. They remember the co-op. They remember the Bat family. They remember Kevin Conroy. They remember the animated style. They remember the bosses. And they remember playing it when they were younger. That last part is powerful. Nostalgia does not mean we believe an old game is perfect. It means the game is connected to a time in our lives. Maybe you played it after school. Maybe you played it during the weekend. Maybe you rented from a video store. Maybe a parent bought it for you. Or maybe you played it with your brother, sister, cousin, or a friend. Years later, you might forget certain missions. You might forget the controls. You might even forget parts of the story. But you remember that room. You remember the person sitting beside you. You remember laughing when something ridiculous happens. And you remember how exciting it felt to play as Batman. That is the impact of a game like Rise of Sin Tzu. Its impact is not measured only by sales or review scores. It lives inside the memories of the people who played it. Even today, when clips of the game appear online, people still talk about playing it with their family members. Some remember playing with a brother. Others remember playing with a parent or their cousins. That tells me this game did something important. It brought people together. Maybe only a few hours, maybe only for a weekend, but those hours mattered. Sin Tzu may be the strongest part of the game's history. He was created as a new enemy for Batman. He had a famous artist involved in his design. He was placed directly in the title of the game. The entire story was built around him. It seemed like DC wanted him to become important, but he never truly escaped this game. Why? I think there are several reasons. First, his story was not explored enough. A new villain needs time. The audience needs to understand what makes the villain different. Sin Tzu talks about war, planning, intelligence, and breaking Batman. Those ideas are interesting, but they are not developed enough. Second, he shares certain qualities with other Batman villains. He is intelligent, he is a great fighter, he has a powerful presence, and he acts like a master strategist. Because Batman already has villains like Ra's al Ghul and Bane, Sin Tzu needed an even stronger personality to stand apart. Third, the game itself did not become popular enough. If Rise of Sin Tzu had become a massive success, perhaps the villain would have returned more often. Maybe he would have appeared in the comics. Maybe he would have appeared in an animated movie. Maybe he would have eventually entered another Batman game. But because the game slowly became forgotten, Sin Tzu became forgotten with it. DC has brought back old and forgotten characters before. Sin Tzu could return with a redesigned story. He could study Batman's history. He could target the entire Bat family. He could force each hero to face a different personal weakness. And this time, the story could explain why he is so obsessed with proving himself against Batman. There is still potential here. The character did not completely fail. The character simply never received a real second chance. So is Batman Rise of Sin Tzu underrated? My answer is yes, but with an important warning. I do not think Rise of Sin Tzu is a secret masterpiece. I do not think it is better than the Arkham games, of course. The combat becomes repetitive, some levels drag on for too long, the timers can be frustrating, the game needed more variety, and Sin Tzu deserved a deeper story. But underrated does not have to mean perfect. It can simply mean that something has more value than people give it credit for. And Rise of Sin Tzu has value. It gave us 4 playable Bat family characters. It offered a full local co-op experience. It brought back voice connected to the animated Batman universe. It introduced a completely new villain. It had unlockable moves, alternate content, artwork, models, and other rewards. And it gave many people memories that stayed with them for years. For a Batman game released before Arkham Asylum, it had some ambitious ideas. The execution was not always perfect, but the ideas were there. I think the game deserves to be remembered as a fun Batman game, not the greatest Batman game ever created, but also not a forgotten masterpiece with 0 flaws, but a unique, enjoyable, and important part of Batman gaming history. That is why I call it underrated. Not because everybody who dislikes it is wrong, but because the game has been almost completely forgotten, and I do not believe it deserves to disappear. When we look back at older games, it is easy to focus only on graphics and gameplay. We compare them to modern games, we point out everything that has aged badly, we laugh at old animations, we complain about old controls, and sometimes those criticisms are fair. But older games can represent more than technology. They represent movements. Batman Rise of Sin Tzu reminds me of playing with my cousins a lot. It reminds me of sitting beside somebody instead of talking through a headset. It reminds me of choosing characters, sharing the screen, and fighting through Gotham together. It reminds me of a simpler time, and maybe that is why I can forgive many of its problems. Because when I play the game, I'm not only thinking about repetitive enemies or frustrating timers, I am remembering how the game made me feel. There will always be better Batman games. There will always be games with longer worlds, deeper combat, better graphics, and more complicated stories. But another game cannot replace your memories. A review score cannot replace them either. Batman Rise of Sin Tzu may be forgotten by most people. Sin Tzu may be a forgotten villain, and the game may never receive a remake or remaster, but for the people who grew up with it, the game still matters. It represents an era of Batman before the Arkham series, an era of local multiplayer, an era where you and another person could protect Gotham from the same couch, and an era where a simple game could create memories that lasted forever. So yes, Batman Rise of Sin Tzu is flawed, it is repetitive, it is sometimes frustrating, and it never reached its full potential, but it is also fun. It is charming, it is nostalgic, and in my opinion, it is one of the most underrated Batman games ever. But now, I want to hear from you. Do you think the game is underrated, or do you think the criticism is fair? Let me know down in the comments below what you guys think. And if you enjoyed this look back at a forgotten Batman game, make sure to subscribe for more so you can never miss a video from my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace!